Great. All right. Well, good morning, class.
Good morning.
How you guys doing?
Mr. Levanen.
So I was asked to do a presentation. So we said we've gone through the whole book. I haven't read the whole book. I'll be the first to admit it. But I've read several chapters and had to teach more than just this. So I think the Oz principle, it's something, first and foremost, let's set the precedence. This has come down from Plum, right? So this is something that's been illustrated and given to us as a new tool, a new way of changing the culture, a new way of thinking of, okay, how do we need to change to become better?
Yeah, I believe it actually started with Tom and Pat and the leadership team here. I think it started with the High Performance Culture Initiative, which started here, and I know Dave Plum originally started that, but the idea of doing the Oz book actually didn't come about till after Tom Stovall was leading the initiative.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, we've all been admonished to read the book, take it upon ourselves. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. And this is a cool chapter for me. I mean, let's go to the Oz principle. It talks about, the Wizard of Oz and comparing everybody. It's kind of fun, and there's some good examples there. Let's talk real life. Let's talk about us. You guys are all leaders, right? We're all, well, I'm a manager of orders, but, you guys are all managers. And you have that capacity, that role that you're supposed to fill. You have subordinates that you're supposed to take care of. You're supposed to be a role model and example for what you do, and you're always being watched, right? As well as you have leaders and managers above you who you seek help from and support from as well. So take all these things into consideration. I'm really passionate about leadership. I enjoy it. I like presenting. I like teaching. I like education. I don't like reading a lot. But I like talking about things, right? And I like using experiences and learning other people's experiences to better myself and to better other people. So I'll see if I can get this to work. All right, so this is basically the outline. I like looking at summaries, right? What you're supposed to do, you're supposed to tell people what you're going to talk about it, and tell them what you just told them, right? So right here, this is later. So we're in chapter 8, Mastering Above Line Leadership. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, we should be skilled with everything above this, talking about God's principle, talking about seeing it, owning it, solving it, and doing it. So hopefully we know that. And then we're getting into results through collective accountability, helping your organization perform above the line. So, right, we understand the idea of what is above the line behavior and actions, and what are below the line behavior and actions. Can somebody give me an example real quick of above the line? This is an open question. Somebody.
There's an email that comes out to like 5 people, and it's, and somebody steps up and say, hey, I got this one.
Cool. Perfect. Or below the line behavior. Give me a different example.
Not finger pointing.
It's not my job. Finger pointing.
Ignoring that email and hoping that somebody else volunteers.
Right. Or it's like, it's his problem, right? Perfect. And it's a really hard mentality to break, just because it's a habitual action that we come across. You're like, I try to do what I'm supposed to do, but I'm like, okay, I'm doing everything I can, boss, but this person isn't doing their job. And because they're not doing their job, I'm affected and I can't do my job. That's a really tough mold to break and to get out of. How do we change ourselves from that? And that's what's been tough reading this, because it's like, okay, give me a prescription of the things I'm supposed to do. And it does, to a certain extent, but it's really our own accountability to bring that to ourselves and to kind of change our mentality and our attitude towards that. And that's what it really is. The Oz principle is talking about a communal change, it's a cultural change, a leadership change, a change for the subordinates, but it's also an individual change as well. So we're all held accountable to that standard. So there's a difference between the collective individuals and the leadership. So again, which role do you play in this? In this accountability, or staying above the line, below the line. Are you a leader?
Yep.
And let me tell you, folks, there's a difference between being a manager and a leader, period. So you can manage people, but it's a greater step. You don't have to pull as many teeth if you're an actual leader, right? If you lead by example, delegate, you treat people like people, because, people have feelings too. It's kind of hard. I got to be a little soft about that, right? Because this book, it says, like, to love your people and nourish them and give them strength. It's just like having a kid, right? You got to raise them, feed them. You got to go through a lot of those long nights. But eventually, hopefully, fingers crossed, they come out to be really great people. And it's the same thing with your subordinates. And people come with habits already. They come with a track record of being other places. You know, they come here to recreate that organization, recreate that attitude and that structure. And that's something we all have to do as a collective. Also coming from the past culture that we came from, whatever that was, right? Because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to change ourselves and become better. So what does staying above the line mean to you and your organization? Well, taking accountability. That's one of the things that we say a lot of, right? And doing the things that we're supposed to do. And if we're having trouble, what else can we do to impact that? How else can we change that ourselves without having to count on somebody else? Or how can we influence somebody else to help them help us? Right? These are really basics. This is a lot of fundamentals of leadership, or just working with people, or building relationships with people, period. What are the rewards of staying above the line? Let's talk about that for a second. What are the rewards for staying above the line as a leader? Open question, not rhetorical.
Better results.
Better results. How so?
If everybody's stepping up to the plate, you know, one would think that we'd get more things done in less time and more productive. Better results.
Falconberry, what does that mean to you? What kind of rewards or results will you get for having you and your Mr. Falconberry? I apologize.
What that means is, you know, there's not that mentality of woe is me. You know, there's not that mentality that all of this change is really killing us, or these processes are really killing us. It's more of an embracement of the goals and the functions of everyday life. That's above the line.
Rick, Mr. Rick, what about you? What are the rewards or successes that you think you'll get from staying above the line or helping your people stay above the line?
I think you keep focus on the task at hand, and you move it along so you get it done. The results are quicker delivery to customers on time, things like that, done right the first time.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. Obviously, you go the other way, you're negative. Slide down into that, you bring your people down with you. And have those conversations. We all slip below the line now and then, but we have to recognize it. I think we all do nowadays. We talk about it and say, okay, we can get them out. We realize it.
Yeah. One of the things that I think, oh, go ahead, Seth, please.
To me, there's a degree of self-satisfaction as well. That's just me, maybe. I don't know. It might work for others as well.
Oh, that's right. That's a perfect answer. And I think it's an attitude change, right? Staying above the line or below the line, right? It's like a positive or negative, right? And we have to trudge through that negative swamp, right? It's real tough. Or we could be in a positive mode, making ourselves feel positive, staying above the line, feeling like we've empowered ourselves or been given empowerment to move forward, right? It's a lot easier to be happy than it is to be negative or to be grumpy, right? And it helps other people. It's contagious, right? So by our own actions of finding success, we're going to help other people be successful as well, especially you guys as leaders, managers, and that's what we need to emphasize here. And even if you're not a leader or manager, you are a leader still. Your subordinates are leaders, right? They take charge and action for their accountability for their actions, everything that they do. Because one person can sour, like one apple can sour the rest of the barrel of apples or whatever they say. So, moving on. Characteristics of above-the-line leaders. They may fall below the line on occasions, but they don't stay there for long, right? Be an example, right? Be heroic. Be a leader. They actively ask and provide feedback. That's why I have this. Okay. Feedback. They hold themselves to the same accountability standards as everybody else. So, do as I say. Or be an example. They desire to help others rise and stay above the line, and they acknowledge others' contributions. That's really important. Give your subordinates credibility. Give other people credibility for what they do. That's going to encourage them to do more. Attaboy, or great job. I really appreciate that. We can all learn something from that. It goes a long ways. And you should always self-internalize these actions as well, thinking about, if somebody did that to me, how would I feel, right? Or how would that make me want to treat others or make me take action? The do nots of above the line leaders. Browbeating others with your newfound knowledge. Competing against others with your superior accountability. Right? I know more than you do. Don't touch me, bro. Controlling others with your own personal gain, or controlling others for your own personal gain, which happens. Ridiculing others for their below the line behavior. That kind of happens around here too. Accountability stick, right? You're falling below the line. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes, right? I've seen it. I feel it sometimes. Okay, this is really...
That's a good point. You're not supposed to ridicule them, but you are supposed to acknowledge.
Right, and there's a fine line. You have to be sensitive about that.
But there is and Kim may disagree with me, but there is a problem with being too sensitive about it. You know, we are adults. We've all been through high school. We've all been picked on.
Yeah.
You know, so we need to get over it and act as adults. And so being sensitive to certain issues, Kim, I just have to disagree with a lot of that.
Well,
Now, you're not as...
No, and actually, yeah, you and I are on the same page on that, and you probably haven't seen this, Seth, but, and I'm probably not gonna get the wording exactly right, but in our, kind of rules for this team, one of the things that we're all supposed to be holding ourselves accountable for doing is for calling out, and I think we've like politely, or there's
Yeah,
some
politely.
adjective, you know, calling
Giving
out.
feedback?
Politely.
No, calling out.
Calling out.
I mean, we actually use the word calling out, like
Okay.
calling out, and I think it's like politely, other members of the team that we see falling below the line.
Yeah.
And so, you still have to be careful, you know, you have to know your audience, and depending on the audience, sometimes you have to be more careful than others, but, you know, yeah, you do have to be careful how you say it, but that doesn't mean you have to tiptoe around people.
Correct.
And you still have to call them out and
Yeah.
know how to do that in a way that's gonna be effective.
Right, and I think that's the word. You can be assertive, and you can be effective in doing it in the right manner. And we'll get to that here in a couple of slides. To read this or not to read this, that's the question.
Yeah, don't.
Okay. Well, this is important, all right? But above the line leaders recognize when others are stuck below the line and are failing to obtain the results they want. This is basically talking about people being stuck in the victim cycle, right? Or becoming a victim and realizing that. Move on. Above the line leaders move immediately to discern why or to what extent people at all levels of the organization have failed to shoulder responsibility for the quality of their own individual contributions. So it's up to you, right? Help others figure out when they're moving below the line. Recognize victim characteristics and take action. So actions that we should take are, we determine the real reasons why people aren't achieving results or stuck below the line. We believe coaching the person or people out of the victim cycle, or we begin coaching people out of the victim cycle. And by recognizing when it's time to intervene and helping others to rise above the victim cycle, above the line leaders help people focus on the right issues in the right way. It's kind of going back to what you were saying, John. So we got to recognize it, intervene, and help them to rise up above it. And I think part of that is discerning between the controllables and uncontrollables, which we're going to get to in a second. So,
do you know when you're going below the line? Do you have a good feel for it?
well, the thing is catching yourself.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Do
Right.
you know when you do it?
I do.
What about your compatriots? Do you see them going below the line and not acknowledge it?
Sometimes, right?
Do you ever call them on it? That's a difficult situation.
Right. It's deemed if it's that point necessary for me to do so or not, right? And I don't know, some situations I'm like, I don't have anything to do with what they're talking about right now, or are we of the attitude that we should always say, hey, you over there, you're falling below the line. You know, is it relative to who my group is or my surroundings or how they're affecting me, or are we randomly pointing people out? What's your opinion?
Well, in this case, being a leader means exhibiting the right behavior. When you don't have authority over someone, it's a very difficult situation.
agree with that, John.
You know, and, you know, you guys work in fairly close quarters, and I gotta believe that there's been at least once where, you know, you've heard somebody on the phone with, say, a customer or something, you know, whether you want to or not, you hear their conversation, and you're thinking, oh man, I can't believe that person just said that. You know, do you take it upon yourself to, you know, politely call them out and say, hey, you know, I'm not eavesdropping, but couldn't help but hear this, and, you know, you might wanna think about whether or not that was really the right way to handle that customer.
Right.
And, you know, and I think as a culture, I think we have to get to the point where we're all comfortable doing that, and we have our organization filled with the type of people who are willing to accept that type of open feedback. You know, now if you got the one person in the group that spends all their time calling out everybody else and not worrying about their own stuff, then that's time for the leader to step in and say, hey, you need to worry about your own things here for a while. But, you know, I think as a culture, I think we do need to get to the point where we're able to do that.
That's a interesting idea. You know, those of us that have been exposed to this, you know, I love the idea of acknowledging. Hey, I'm gonna go below the line for a few minutes.
Right.
I've had plenty of people do that, you know, in my office, and I'm fine with it. But then they always come back up, and then we talk about solutions. It's really tough thinking of a peer situation where that could work, unless that person acknowledges that they went below the line. It's, boy, I'd love to get to the point where there is a comfort level taking feedback from a peer.
You know, I can say on our, you know, on our HR team, which, you know, is we're all at, for the most part, at different sites, but, you know, I think our team has gotten to the point where we're all able to do that. I mean, I've had people do it with me, and I've done it with other team members, but it's, you know, I acknowledge that in some ways our team is unique, and you know, most of us have known each other a long time, and we're comfortable with our leader, and we're comfortable with each other, and, you know, and I think we function that way, but yeah, it's difficult, and it takes time to get there. And it does depend a lot on the leader and whether or not the leader's comfortable with that environment.
Well, I know from my surroundings, we've talked about it so much that it's like, okay, I'm gonna go below the line there after they do something. I'm not below the line, below the line. I use Corey Johnson as an example. This is it right next to him, right? He deals with the intracoast international customers, can be very demanding and difficult. But we acknowledge it, you know, and if you're acknowledging it,
Yeah.
you have to acknowledge what is it, the actions of being above the line as well. So, and I think that's good,
That's
because it's
great.
been instituted. I think, I've seen so many times where, and I'll be honest, where our organization has failed because we give a nice presentation, or we invite somebody here, we talk about something, but where's the follow-up action, right? But I think with this, it's finally catching some traction because we're talking about it again and again and again and again, and it's something that we're getting used to, and we're forming to, or conforming to, and we're starting to talk about it and realize it, and let other people know that we're realizing it, and it takes hold. And as we continue to stretch that momentum, we'll continue to have success, I think. So, all right, not allowing yourself to take accountability to the extreme. Examples of taking accountability to the extreme are continually seeking below-the-line behaviors.
Yeah, that was my example I just gave. The person that makes it their own mission to go around calling everybody else out all the time.
Yes.
I love those people.
Right. So, controlling other people, operating like self-appointed thought police, those who force people above the line into a world they themselves have created to suit their own beliefs and prejudices. That's something we got to be really careful not to step into. Yeah, because I as a manager or a leader, I think as a person of authority, You know, we have an idea. This is my castle. This is how I want it. You know, I need to keep things structured. I need to keep things in a certain way. You have to conform to it. If you don't, right? But it's not. I don't know. It shouldn't be like that, because that's not going to get people to follow the leader. Instead, identify and address the weaknesses and utilize the strengths. Super important. Helping people, finding the difference between controllable, uncontrollable factors, weaknesses, strengths. The word coaching. What does coaching really mean? That's an open question. So for you guys,
Cussing at your players.
cussing at your players,
Making chairs. Laps.
making them do laps. Jim?
Throwing chairs.
Throwing chairs? That's an interesting answer.
We all just found examples of taking accountability to the extreme.
Yeah, that's accountability right there. I haven't been in that workshop yet. But yeah, coach, encourage, teach, give feedback, admonish, love, there's that word I was talking about, and lead them. Right? So attributes of a leader. Coaching. Being like a parent to little children. Attaboy, you did bad, but you know, you can do better. Right? We're all adults. We gotta treat people like adults and not like kids. It's true, but same kind of principles of nourishment. These are people, treat them as such. Comments? Okay. Uncontrollables. Here's the thing. Write them down, make a list, and review them. Super important to help us as an exercise, and not only for you, but also the people that you lead, so that we help discern between those controllable and uncontrollable factors. Sometimes it's difficult. As a habit, sometimes I will take things to John, or I'll bring things up, and I'm like, instead of taking a second and thinking about the position and what I'm thinking about, I'll just react. It's a common habit, right? Of saying, well, it's their fault, right? Or I'm trying to do this, but I can't figure out how to resolve it, right? And I feel like I need somebody else. But if I take a step back thinking, okay, what else can I do? Have I done everything I can do? Is there any other options here? Examples: weather, natural disasters, other people's choices, taxes, economy, physical appearance, government regulations, etc. So many uncontrollables. I have no control. I don't know. I was going to use an example. I couldn't figure one out. You know what I'm talking about. Specific examples, Jeff?
I have a really silly example.
Please.
I have no control over the temperature in this building,
Mhm.
and so that's why I carry this around with me.
Understood.
No, I'm perfectly above the line.
Passive aggressive.
That's right.
This is super hot.
Really?
What's the problem?
You're a hothead?
He's below the line.
Right.
It's something I can't control, but there's something I can do about it.
Exactly. That's right. Or traffic right here. It's something that we cannot control, but there is something we can do to avoid it. So spending a lot of time complaining, we can take action and adjust our time and leave home earlier. You know, what if something happens in a scenario, what's the next time that we can change it or avoid that from happening again or make it better? That's part of the learning experience. Struggling. Focus on what you can influence, and then separate the controllables from the uncontrollables. Welcome. Providing a model for others. As people seek to create accountability in their organization, it is critical to remember that they must always provide a model for those with whom they work or associate. It is imperative that they remain accountable for the consequences that flow from whatever role model they provide. If it is a negative model, then they are likely to take not only themselves, but also the entire organization below the line. Talked about that already. Bosses who deflect blame put employees in a tough spot, as well as other people. That was from the book. I just wanted to emphasize that as a leader. You know, we all need to take responsibility for our own actions, or if we made a mistake. And that's being an example to other people, saying, hey, I'm taking ownership. And that's emphasizing and empowering other people to realize, wow, okay, I have somebody who takes responsibility, who's willing to respect their mistakes or their actions and make up for it. And that encourages me as a subordinate to do the same thing, you know? So you want to be around those kind of people. providing model for others, how to apply the right touch. Again, being careful between being over poignant with feedback and just being passive, right? Constantly ask yourself the question, what else can I do to achieve the results you desire? Invite people to give you feedback on whether or not they perceive you operating above the line on a particular issue. So invite to receive feedback. Acknowledge, everybody in this room, if I'm doing something wrong, please give me feedback. Please encourage me to find a better way of doing this.